the Black church and more than just Black church in America, what God forged in a people in sub-Saharan Africa and the diaspora is actually something that's very powerful and needed, particularly in worship and prayer and courage that we need in the missions movement. And I believe there's anointing and there's an authority forged in there that's going to confront the spirit of Islam.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Black missions, we're not just talking about, well, we need more representation. We're talking about a seat that we refuse to move forward unless our brothers and sisters at the table with us running together.
Thank you for watching the MAPS Global Podcast, where we discuss leadership and culture within the convergence of worship, prayer, and missions in your neighborhood and in the nations.
Yay! Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the MAPS Global Podcast. And it is your girl, Mimi. Yay, clap hands. And the man himself, Ari Martinez.
I'm here to serve. I'm just happy to be alive today.
We are just men. I am just a man. I am just...
What?
we're just here to serve.
We're just going to clarify. Are you okay?
I just mean it's I'm just a humble man, just here to serve.
A mere man?
But I'm just a mere man, yes. Man, English is failing me these days. I don't know where it's disappearing to.
Well, the mind really boggles, you know?
It does actually boggle the mind. But yeah, since I've been back from Africa, it's been hard for me to...
To be clear, Mimi knows she's a woman.
I do. I very much am aware that I am a woman.
And we're grateful for it.
And I'm happy to be a woman.
And
I'm so grateful to be a woman.
You're an amazing woman.
Thank you very much. I was just trying to say a saying that I clearly don't know as well as I thought I did. So, but anyways, today we're talking about something.
Not all English is created equal.
No, it isn't.
Yes.
And yeah, sometimes as the day progresses, sometimes English fails us more and more.
Us both.
Right?
Yes, for
okay,
sure.
I thought it was just me. Okay.
Wait, give an example, because we run into this. We run into this periodically, not as much now, so you were born and raised in South Africa.
Yes.
South Africa.
Yes.
And so you grew up speaking how many languages? 5?
Yeah, about 4. I would say it was the more frequent regular.
Right.
Yeah.
So just for you guys, you might not know this, but we as Americans, we're really behind the 8 ball. Like most of the world is at least bilingual.
At least, yes.
And anyways, but English, the South African English you grew up with was a mixture of British with some Afrikaans, which has Dutch influence.
Yes.
And so there's phraseology that we're speaking the same language, but we're not saying the same thing. And so what's like one that we've chuckled at before?
Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot.
Sorry,
now.
I mean the mind really boggles was a funny one. Yes,
the mind boggles. I think I've said Bob's your uncle once, and no one contextually that understood, but the saying was just foreign.
It kind of over.
Yes, So there's so many things. It's hard for me to pick at.
Yeah, are there things that you use on a regular basis that you call it something else, and
Sure.
What's a funny one?
We call zucchini baby marrow. So zucchini's baby marrow, and I actually went to the store. I was
and you asked for baby
and I said,
marrow?
"Hey, do you guys have baby marrow?" Yes,
and they looked at you
they
like
had no clue. No clue what I was talking about, and I had to
marrow.
Baby marrow, yes, baby marrow.
I can't even pull the etymological.
I don't know.
Okay.
We've never questioned it, but so now I've learned to.
But there's a lot of British phrase like code switch. Yeah, you're a master code switcher.
I've learned, yeah.
There's a lot of British in there. Like you would call the trunk of a car a boot, right?
Call it a boot. Call the front of the car a bonnet. Do you guys call it a bonnet?
No.
And then at the time I was sending someone to my car, and they were looking. You guys call it the glove compartment,
Correct.
but we call it the cubby hole.
So a cubby hole is what we had in kindergarten.
Yeah, no.
That you put that it was those boxes you put your lunch in your and you put it in your cubby hole.
Yes.
See, this is great.
Yes.
Anyways,
so there you go. Welcome to my life.
This
This
is
is
great.
what cross-cultural living is
This
like,
is it.
friends.
This is what
beautiful.
an international family looks
100%,
like.
100%.
Speaking of diversity and
Yes.
international and learning each other's languages,
Yes.
what are we talking about today?
Thank you. So today we're talking about something that's actually very important to us. It's very close to our hearts. We're talking about Black missions.
Yes.
And this is something we pray through. This
Pray
is something
for, yeah.
we pray for. This is something we hold fast to. And of course, as we like to do, we like to tell you what we're talking about. And I think we also love to invite people into conversation about some of the
For
things
sure,
that we're talking
yeah.
about. And also in hopes that we can talk to the people who maybe the Lord is talking to you about a similar thing.
For sure.
And so that you can just find camaraderie here with us. So today it's Black missions. And we're going to, as we typically do, we're going to say, what is Black missions? We're going to want to talk about that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about
A little bit of history.
a little bit
of history.
Okay, great. A little bit of history.
Yeah, I think that'll help.
Yeah. And so I think let's just take it. We want to chat. We'll land somewhere with it for sure. I think, but let's first define.
As is all of our podcasts.
We land somewhere. Yes. But yeah, let's define what Black missions is. What do we mean when we talk about Black missions? Because I'm sure lots of people are talking about Black missions.
And what do you mean by a lot?
I don't know.
You know,
would
it's cool
would you
though.
say
We
that?
just had Black voices in our
Yes.
prayer room. They've been amazing.
Who are they?
Shout out. It's I'm gonna butcher it. I shouldn't try, but it's a ministry from circuit riders.
Yes.
Connected through the history YWAM
Yes.
and anyways, focused on going to give me a thumbs up if this is right. I'm pretty sure it's right, but going to HBCUs and college
Yes.
campuses and preaching the gospel and stirring up revival.
Yes.
And they're amazing.
They're
We love
amazing.
them. Anyways, so, but I think probably not a lot of people are talking about
So
this.
that's part
But
of the
I'll
reason
say
why we
this.
need to talk about it, right?
Yes. I will say this, though, which has been really encouraging, is since, and I'm not taking credit for it, but since we've started talking about this in a very focused way, I've seen other missions organizations, particularly even the biggest mission organization in the world that's in our city,
Awesome.
the IMB, take a real hard look at this and put some effort into the mobilization and the training and sending of Black missionaries
Awesome.
to fill the gap that exists right now, and in terms of the missionary force from America that is currently less than 1% or less of Black missionaries.
Yes.
And for me, I see that as the fruit of a problem that we need to address in terms, because I believe, here's the end of the story. I
Yes.
believe that there's an irreplaceable place at the table for Black missionaries in frontier missions, and we need their voice, we need their bodies, we need their labor, we need the anointing that God has shaped and forged within the Black community. We need it for the Muslim world, the Buddhist world, and the Hindu world. And so I think we are missing out if we don't turn to our brothers and sisters in what's quote unquote the Black church. We're going to step all over all kinds of semantics, so bear with us. But I think we're missing out if we don't not only point to the seat and say, "Hey,
Right.
you belong here." Missions is not just a white
Yes.
movement. It's the Great Commission, and it wasn't a white movement. That's easy to debunk because it started with a bunch of Jewish people,
Right.
right? And Arab and Middle Eastern people is how it started. But there's an irreplaceable seat at the table in Black missions, and we want to go together in this, and the Black church and more than just Black church in America, what God forged in a people in sub-Saharan Africa and the diaspora is actually something that's very powerful and needed, particularly in worship and prayer and courage, that we need.
Yeah.
in the missions movement, and I believe there's anointing and there's an authority forged in there that's going to confront the spirit of Islam.
Yeah.
So when we talk about black missions, we're not just talking about, well, we need more representation. We're talking about a seat that we refuse to move forward unless there are our brothers and sisters at the table with us running together.
Yeah. That's powerful. So,
Yeah. So what is black missions?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I loved, anyways, I loved what you just saying, how we thinking about it. But maybe before, I don't know where you want to go first. Do you want to first talk about how we came into this conversation? Like, was it always this clear to you?
No, it wasn't. I don't think I actually answered your question, what is black mission? So I'll just give
Yeah.
a statement.
Okay.
What I mean by that, I used to say African American missions movement.
Yeah.
But in being in the world of mobilizing, training, and sending black missionaries, I've come to realize over the last 15 years that term is insufficient because it doesn't encompass the scope of what God's doing. And in fact, it's larger than just African American community. It's the people from African descent, sub-Saharan African descent, black people.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what God forged, not only through the African American experience, but also in sub-Saharan Africa. You're not African American, you're African.
No, for sure.
And so for me, we've evolved, or maybe gone up a level from African American missions to black missions, because I believe that this is not just about American citizens. It's about what God has, the beauty God and the authority God's put in black people.
Yeah.
For this. So that's my definition: is people from African descent, both through the diaspora and sub-Saharan African peoples,
Right.
them laboring alongside the global church in frontier missions.
Yeah. So our assignment is, excuse me, is to mobilize for the Great Commission.
100%.
And you said you've been, as you started on the journey of mobilizing for the Great Commission, giving it a more focused
Yes.
effort, something came to light for you?
For sure.
Okay.
And again, like, as is the rest of my story, I'm the least qualified person to be talking about this, man. I'm Cuban by descent, but if you look at me, I'm white, right? And I'm a white kid that grew up in South Alabama, right? And so, if you would have told 15-year-old Randy in a rock band, hey, you're going to be a huge part, one of the primary mandates of your life is going to be mobilizing a black missions movement, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. So what do you want to hear, my story a little bit, or what do you want? Like, there's a lot. I could talk for another hour on how I got into it.
I think the point where you realized, without giving too much detail into your story,
Yeah. Okay.
the point where you realize, like, hey, this needs to become part and parcel of the mandate
Okay.
of MAPS Global.
Yeah. Okay. So it actually, I'll skip the rock over the prophetic history. It actually started the night we launched MAPS, the Mission and Prayer School. This is 2015.
Yeah.
So 11 years ago. And it started prophetically, then Bible was added to it, and then it led me on a journey of discovery of the reality of black participation in global missions. Because it just wasn't even on the radar.
Right.
Like everything else I'm doing wasn't on the
sure.
radar. I didn't know what, when the Lord spoke audibly to me, who will build the house of prayer in the Middle East, I didn't know anything about global missions. I was just wanted to write worship songs and see revival.
You're such an example of obedience. It's wild.
Weakness, and God's choice of foolish things to shame the wise is what
and
I'm an example of.
obedience.
Thank you. And I am what I am by the grace of God.
Amen.
And so the night we launched MAPS, Mission and Prayer School, it's now MAPS Global. A couple things happened in like a 24-hour period that just caught my attention. One was a dear friend of mine had a dream he sent me, and in the dream we were fishing for MAPS recruits. And we were sitting on the pier, we were fishing for MAPS recruits, and we weren't catching anything. So in the dream, we get into the water. We're wading into the water. Wade in the water. We're wading in the water. And we're reaching down into the water, and we're pulling up these fish, and we're pulling up all these different fish, and they're all different kinds of fish than the ones we were trying to catch.
Wow.
And in the dream, he turns to me and he says, "What are we going to do with all these fish that don't look like the fish we're trying to catch?" And I turned to him in the dream and said, "We're going to train and send them all."
Wow.
So he sends me this dream the morning that we're announcing the launch of MAPS. And I'm like, what does that mean? I have no idea. I didn't even. So long story short, we had another, it was a conference. We were announcing it at the first night of the conference, and we had another speaker lined up, but they had the morning of, they had to cancel because they had a concussion and they couldn't get on the plane. So we were looking around and we're like, what do we do? And a friend of mine, Jonathan Tremaine Thomas, was there. And we were like, JT, do you want to take this session? And in true JT fashion, he was like, this is confirmation of an 8-year prophetic storyline that I'm going to release tonight. I'm like, whoa, that's intense. I have no clue what he's saying. Long story short, we stand up that night. I have no clue what he's going to preach about. And I stand up, we announce we're launching MAPS, pray to train laborers to pray, preach, and sing among the unreached till every nation sees and sings of the worth of Jesus. Yay, we're doing it. He stands up and he preaches a message called Manumission unto the Great Commission about the prophetic history and the of the African American church and the authority that God put in the black church for prayer and worship and courage, and how he's going to loose it for the Great Commission and this historic black missions movement coming. And I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, like what is happening? Like I've never heard anybody say this before.
Wow.
And as he was talking, just the Spirit of the Lord moved throughout. We were in a tent and I was groaning, people were groaning. And many of my black friends were just like weeping and heaving under this message. And I'm thinking, what is going on? This is so interesting. And I realized in the moment, I was watching the interpretation of the dream that my friend sent me that morning.
Wow.
So long story short, I went, this is crazy. Now what's bizarre, and I won't have time to play out because I want to get to the meat, is inside joke. Sorry.
Yeah.
is I had, this is going to sound so swirly, I'm going to drop it and walk. 3 weeks, a month earlier, I had prophesied to our leadership team that there was going to be a global earthquake, and it was going to confirm a date, that something was going to happen on this date that was going to be a wake-up call for the church in America. And long story short, that happens. This is April. Gosh, I don't have the dates in front of me. But so it happened. So JT preaches a message. I'm sitting there going, what is this about a mobilizing, training, sending a black missions movement? And then 4 days later, on the date I prophesied, Freddie Gray dies in Baltimore.
Wow.
And it's a long story, which we don't have to go into, but it was bringing the conversation up about what was happening in Black America to the church. And that conversation is still open, and it's recapitulated many, many times. And the Lord's serious about having that conversation with his whole church, not just Black church or white church, with the whole church. He's having, he's interested in having that conversation. So, and then, so that happens on the date that I had told the team, this is what the Lord says. And then 3 or 4 days later, the earthquake hits Nepal, a historic earthquake that shook the highest point on earth. It shook Mount Everest. And that's what led us into our storyline about Nepal as well. But it was connected to Black missions movement. So long story short, I had no clue. What do you do with that?
Yes.
I'm like, what do you do?
Yes.
Say yes.
Right.
And let the Lord unfold the story. And that led me to an encounter I had in Savannah, Georgia.
Yes.
Around a man that I had never heard anything about named George Lyle. And that gets us into history.
Yes.
So we can go there if you want. But
yeah,
that's my entrance into it, is going, the Lord cares about this for me personally. I'm not saying this is your mandate. I'm just saying for Randy and thus Maps, there's only 2 things that the Lord has confirmed to me with a global earthquake and a news headline. One was, who will build the house of prayer in the Middle East, with the earthquake that happened. And then mobilized, train, and send a black missions movement, and the earthquake happened, and the global headlines. So for me and for us, it's become not just something like, hey, this is important to talk about. We feel a sense of responsibility to carry that message, and to carry responsibility to mobilize, train, and send black missionaries.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody's mandate, but it's something that we feel very passionately about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had this, and by we, I mean MAPS Global. This is a topic that we talk about frequently internally, right? And so I think when we talk about the history, some of these names we've heard, but similar to you, there is a significant part of the world that has never heard them. And until I came to MAPS Global, I had never heard of them. And the interesting thing that it did for me actually was it also sent me down just a path of curiosity of looking into not only looking for who were the, memorialized black missionaries in America, but also where I'm from, like who,
For sure.
So I think the history is important to know that, hey, this is actually not something that has never, ever happened before, but it's something that has stopped maybe.
Yeah, that's a crucial point in the education piece is we're not calling the black church or black missionaries to pick up something that's the white church's mandate. We're actually, in my opinion, we're reminding the black church of their history, and we're reminding the black church of what started with them.
That's good.
Because the history points to the destiny.
Okay.
And so it's actually calling the church to go, hey, this is actually began with you, and it's in your foundation. And I believe the Lord's stirring the black church to look back at the foundation and go, oh, actually, Frontier Missions, not just in the black church, but Frontier Missions in the American church started in the black community.
Yeah.
And that takes us to a few names I'll rattle off. I won't do the whole history, but these are crucial names because, again, like you said, I never heard these names. I had been in Frontier Missions for a number of years before I sovereignly came upon this. It was just hard to find. In fact, there's only that I know of one book written about the first American missionary. And so here's the names you want to know, because the current shortage in black missionaries on the field has not always been the story.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a rich history of black participation in Frontier Missions and in the Great Commission, in the American Missions Force. And you can make the argument, which I will make, that it actually started the foundation, the firsts. All of the firsts of American missions started with black missionaries. Most notably, George Liele. George Liele was a slave. He actually started in Virginia, and then moved down to South Carolina. He was baptized by a guy named Matthew Moore. Do you know this part? It's crazy, which means something to us. So, anyways, and so they were in Savannah, Georgia. Moved down to Georgia. He was in Savannah, Georgia, and George Whitefield started going down to Savannah. There's a Moravian population actually there too. George Whitefield goes down, starts preaching, and at that time, this is mid 1700s. This is pre-Revolutionary War. The slave owners and the slave populations got to hear George Whitefield together, and George Liele, who was a slave at the time, was so inspired by the preaching of George Whitefield that he started to start his own preaching ministry. And his British master at the time saw the anointing on this guy and gave him his manumission. Actually, gave him his manumission papers and said, "You've got a ministry." And then the populations around Savannah, Georgia, started letting George Liele come and preach to.
So manumission is freedom papers.
Freedom
right?
papers, yeah. So, and if you track the story, it's pretty incredible, from slave to free to son to missionary, you know, and so George Liele starts preaching among the plantations in Savannah, Georgia, and just becomes so fruitful that they actually give him a piece of property, which is now in downtown Savannah, Georgia. And it's called First African Baptist Church, and the there was this movement pre-Revolutionary War. This is 1730s, I believe, where the plantation owners would allow all the slave populations from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night all go down, and they built the church. They would carry the stones up from the river, and they built this church, First African Baptist Church, and George Liele was the pastor. And the church was incredibly interesting for that time because it was one of the only churches in America where black and white were in the same congregation together. So George Liele starts preaching. He plants First African Baptist Church. He's preaching, and along the way, he begins to get a heart because he saw what's happening in Savannah, and he heard what was happening in terms of the brutality and also just the opportunity to preach the gospel in the slave populations and plantations in Jamaica. So he gets this heart for nations that are not his own. And so he hands First African Baptist Church. This is like a whole history in 5.
Yes.
I'm giving it
Yes,
quick.
you're doing a great job.
I just want to honor it. But yeah, thanks.
You're doing a great job.
So thank you. So he hands his church over to Andrew Bynum, his second in command. And then George Liele takes his family. They get on a ship and they sail to Kingston, Jamaica, and he begins to preach among the slave populations in Jamaica, and there's a move of God in Jamaica. Now, when George Liele, so I had this crazy encounter in his church with this lady. I won't tell that whole story, but this is what we got to grab on George Liele's story. George Liele got a heart to preach the gospel to other nations, handed over his fruitful ministry to lay down his life for missions, and he left the shores of America 50 years before Adoniram Judson did, who we call America's first missionary, because he's white.
Yes.
And that's what we learned, in most mission circles, we learned that Adoniram Judson's the first missionary. He went to Burma, but George Liele left almost half a century before him. And so America, not Black America, America's first missionary to the nations was a black man.
Wow.
And so in the very foundation of American missions is the African American church.
Yes.
So he's the first. Then you fast forward to 1830, so about 100 years later, and you run into Betsy Stockton. Betsy Stockton, amazing. Same story. Was enslaved person. She served in the home of either the president of Princeton University.
It says president.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Yes,
I've just loved these stories.
Yeah.
And she gets saved. She's granted her freedom. She's allowed. This is 1823. This black woman's allowed to sit in the classes in Princeton University, and she says, as she's sitting in the classes, Princeton University at the time was a seminary, and she says, with all her heart, she found it her sacred duty of Christians to offer themselves in humble obedience to God's call to carry out his plan for salvation through Jesus Christ for the whole world. She gets marked. So she responds to the call to missions. This former slave, now freed woman, single woman, and she makes the journey by herself to the Sandwich Islands, which are now the Hawaiian Islands. So this is pre-Hawaii becoming a state, to the indigenous populations, and she labors for the gospel among the indigenous populations in modern-day Hawaii.
No member care.
Jesus, no member care. And we believe in member care.
Member care is wonderful.
Yeah, we're building member care so that 1,000 Betsy Stockton's can do it because she's exceptional.
Yeah. I'm just marveling at.
And she plants.
The wonder of the woman.
School. She builds schools. She preaches the gospel. She plants works all throughout what's modern day Hawaii, and she became America's first single woman missionary. Again, almost half a century before Lottie Moon.
That's wild.
Left for Asia. And so you have these names. Lot Carey is obviously, maybe it's not obvious. Lot Carey is another name that's very special to us because he was a slave who granted freedom, worked in the tobacco warehouses in Shockoe Bottom in our city.
That's the Carey that some of these streets are named after?
Yes.
Wow.
And Lot Carey got a heart to preach the gospel to overseas to sub-Saharan Africa, and none of the white missions boards would send him because he was black. And so the bro started his own missions organization. He said, and here's what's crazy. So he's former slave, freed man, gets a heart for missions, says yes to the call. No white missions board or organization will send him. So he starts his own Richmond African Missions.
Wow.
Which is Ram. Which is also my initials, yeah. And Locke Carey, here's what's crazy about Locke Carey. He not only starts his own missions organization, but then he single-handedly, through working and through raises money for 23 black missionaries to go with him. He funded black missions. Wow. And they went to Liberia and began to plant churches. And he ended up becoming the governor of Liberia. Incredible guy.
It's an incredible story.
And so the first black missions organization came out of Richmond, which is just the juxtaposition of the history of Richmond.
Yes.
And then you have this redemptive storyline,
Yes.
right? And so for the first, if you want to say American missions, in terms of missionaries in America, for the first 150 years, there was actually a large, if you want to use the word representation, but a large representation of black people in American missions. And so here's my just crude storyline. I'm just going to pop a couple things just to consider. I'm not saying, well, I'm not getting qualified. Just hear me out on this. What happened was by the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, this movement, wonderful movement, amazing movement called Student Volunteer Missions Movement, led by a few white guys out of New England who covenanted together to finish the Great Commission in their generation. And so, as very naturally, what they did was they went and started recruiting other people that looked like them. And so they went and recruited from college campuses. Which at the time, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, is university campuses were almost exclusively white spaces. I'm not saying they were racist and didn't want to recruit black people. And I'm downing SVM. I think SVM it is the largest missions mobilization in the history of America. But what it did effectively, because of where they were recruiting from, was minimized to almost eliminate black participation in that movement. Simply because they were recruiting from their spaces, which were exclusively white, and so what happened is SVM mobilizes 20,000, some say 30,000 missionaries to the field, and it's almost exclusively white. World War I hits, the funding dries up, everything goes towards the war effort, and essentially the missions movement goes on pause through World War I, World War II. And then we emerge out of World War II, and on the other side of World War II, America becomes a superpower. And what transpires then between 1950 and the 2000s, for about 50 years, is, in terms of the church, is what you have is America prospering economically, socially becoming a superpower, and then you have the separation or the segregation of our cities, where a lot of white people moved to suburbs, and then black people stayed in urban areas. Right? That's just a statistical fact. Okay, so I don't know why I feel like I don't know. I've had conversations. People get mad at me, but this is just facts. Okay, so what happens is, through that, this is what we got to clock. They call it white flight. That's just what happened. But what happens is, through that process, the resources, the messaging, the mobilization, the Great Commission goes out to suburbs. And what's left in the urban areas is the black church going, hey, we've got to take care of the people around us, because for the most part, those urban areas became impoverished. And so what transpired and then you have segregation, which was all in there. So that's real, and that happened. Okay, so what happens? What's the result of that? What's the result of that is that the missions mobilization, the missions funding, the missions messaging, the missions idea of global missions really went into white suburban areas and continued to be focused on the Great Commission. And what happened in Black urban areas is that missions became neighborhood. And so you walk that through for about 50 years, and what emerges on the other side of that is two paradigms for missions.
Is that like two different definitions?
Well, it's just when you say missions in the Black church, it means one thing. When you say missions in the white church, it means now post the last 20 years of dominionism, now missions means I'm anywhere that God gives me assignment. I'm a missionary, and that's
a story for another day.
We can't do that. Okay, so but back on track, and so missions became take care of neighborhood for the Black church. Missions for white church became nations, and so as you then get into the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where this new wave of thrust of missions mobilization, the Louisiana Convention, defining unreached people groups, all that leading up to the turn of the century and this huge missions thrust, is you had this huge missions thrust again in the church. And on the other side of that, you have let's take it, and I love these guys, but this is kind of the result of that process, is that we have what's called the Great Omission and the Great Commission. You have less than 1% of Black participation in American missions. And these are numbers from a few years ago, but when I was doing the research and when I was talking about this, is you have, this is just to capture it. Again, they're actually doing a really good job at trying to speak into this space. But you have the International Missions Board, which is in our city. We love them. They're awesome. The biggest missions organization in the world. They have somewhere around, they've shrunk a little
4,000.
bit. Yeah, 4,000 now. It used to be 5,000. They have over 4,000 missionaries, and less than 20 of them are Black.
Yes, I think like around 27 were counted.
Okay, 27 now. When I did this, it was 13.
Yeah.
So they're moving forward.
Yeah.
But just look at the proportions there.
It's still less than 1%.
Yeah. And the point in saying that is, actually, I believe that we're, as those that have been carrying the messaging, the mobilization, the resources, actually need to turn and serve our brothers and say, hey, actually, this is your story too.
Yes.
In fact, you're the firsts.
Yeah.
George Lyle, Betsy Stockton, and we want to honor that history and call the Black church, point to their history and call them into their destiny, which is to carry the Great Commission forward and to carry their piece of the Great Commission forward, which I believe has to do with authority and worship and prayer, song, and courage to go into very difficult places. Yeah. And so here we get to why is this, Black missions, why is it important to us? Because I really do think it's a conversation the Lord wants to have, and say, hey, I want all the family at the table.
Yes.
The Great Commission's a family, a family mission, and I want the whole family at the table when we're moving forward. And we've got to, and this is where we'll get into mobilization, the meat, as you say. We need to start looking. We need to broaden our perspective when we start thinking about what a laborer looks like, where a laborer comes from, because God wants to pull laborers from many different places and launch them in the 1040 window to pray, preach, and sing. And if we have a very rigid view or a very small view of what a laborer looks like, I think we'll miss the heart of God. And
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I agree.
Thanks for letting me tell that story.
It's awesome. Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you. You did a great job.
Thanks.
I also want to say, we're talking mostly around the history of American missionaries here.
Yeah.
But I also would say that we've seen the same in sub-Saharan Africa too.
Yeah. Yes.
And the definitions in the global south of what a missionary is also are a little bit different, right? But at the end of the day, at the core, it's the same thing, which is not necessarily an intentional exclusion, but mobilization. Where is the mobilization happening, and where is it centralized?
Yeah.
And who's being left behind?
And here's the thing: you replicate what you celebrate.
Absolutely.
Right? And so we're right to celebrate Hudson Taylor.
For
we're right
sure.
to celebrate David Livingston. We're right to celebrate Lottie.
Yes.
Because we want to replicate that too.
Yes.
But we want to also celebrate the George Lyles and the Betsy Stocktons and the Lat Carries and these amazing men and women, because we want to replicate that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the way that we are going about doing it, right?
Yeah.
At Maps Global is like we are a mobilizing, training, and sending
Yes.
people. That's what we do. And
I just signed back up. Let's go. We are that.
and we're excited, like Randy was saying, about the Great Commission, and we want anyone who also is excited about it to be part of our journey and part of our process. But with the mandate that Randy has felt on his life, we want to focus and make space for minimizing the scarcity of Black missions.
Yes. We want more.
We want more. We want more than what we have. And so how are we going about it?
Okay, so let's take it those three things briefly. Mobilizing, training, sending. Because if we replicate what we celebrate, then we've got to evolve in how we mobilize.
Okay.
Now, let me be super clear. And I spoke at this thing called George Lyle Mission Summit, and I said this. And it's actually helpful. It's freeing. Which I was the only white leader there, and it was an amazing gathering. But I stepped in that space and I said, listen, guys, the ignorance about the Great Commission is not a Black church problem. It's a American church problem. Like, just so you know, and I want to be really clear. Like, I'm not pointing going, man, if the Black church could just get on board like us. 82%, according to Barna, 82% of churchgoers in America across the spectrum cannot tell you what the Great Commission is, can't give you a reference for it, and can't explain it. This is not a Black church problem. This is an American church problem. And so when you talk about mobilizing Black missionaries, in one sense, it's about mobilizing missionaries, Black and white, because there is wholesale ignorance about the Great Commission right now in America. And so we have made it our aim to be annoyingly loud about Jesus and his mission, to make a lot of noise about this, because in my opinion, it is the only mission for the church. Every single ministry and individual assignment is plumb line to that mission. So that's important to say when we talk about education. But I think there's a step further we can take in terms of education and awareness within the Black community of going, hey, your history, we honored the history that's in this, in the Black church, and the history points to the destiny. You are the firsts. And so we're calling the Black church to pick up an assignment that they began with. And I think even just beginning to celebrate these names and promote them even within not only white but Black spaces, it gives. So I'll tell you a story. My Black pastor friend, he came to our the debut of our 50 Hours.
Okay. The
documentary.
Okay.
We rented out a theater downtown, the Bird Theater.
Yes.
We showed it. There's a word for it. What's not debut? What's it? Premiere.
Premiere.
And it was a whole thing. My Black pastor friend came. He sat through the whole thing. He was like, at the end, I said, what'd you think? He said, that was amazing. He goes, I'm so moved. He goes, but is it for me? Because I didn't see anybody that looked like me. Yeah. And that's a really good question to ask.
I mean, I wanted to say that. I know it's not a socio-political justice issue.
No.
That we are talking about here. But when the Lord invited me into missions, it was hard for me to... I think it makes a difference to know that there are people around me that are celebrating the thing that the Lord is talking to me about.
Yes.
And that in where I am, I can actually walk in my assignment. I don't have to go to the USA. I don't have to go and find people. And I think part of the scarcity is for us, for a lot of people that are, I want to say, growing up in the Black church or growing up in the Black community, is that our definition, it has only just been that. Like being a missionary means this thing that is not part of my destiny. Totally. That is not an option for me.
So the point in saying that, I tell you that story to say we need to start celebrating these Black men and women who gave themselves courageously for the Great Commission. And in that, Black people can look and say, that person looks like me and they did this. And I think there's a huge part of the mobilization.
It also gives courage. It
100%.
gives courage. It gives boldness. It also gives.
It's the same reason we tell Lottie Moon's story, because single women can go, oh, she did it and she looks
And
like me.
Adoniram Judson's story. You know what I mean?
Totally, and Hudson Taylor,
100%.
yeah.
Sorry, Hudson Taylor.
And so there's an awareness
Yes.
thing that I think, in addition to the general education for the church about the Great Commission, I think there's something that we can do, and this is why we do podcasts like
Yes.
this, to say, hey, there's people that look like you and sound like you, and they did it, and you can do it too, and it's just inspiring. I think the third part of mobilization is we need to rethink the aesthetic of what a missionary looks like.
Okay, say more.
And I take the result of student volunteer mission movement. It was incredible in mobilizing missionaries, but it was incredible in mobilizing one type of missionary. And I think if we're going to talk about mobilizing Black, brown, white global South missionaries, South America and Sub-Saharan Africa, we need to think about the aesthetic of what a laborer looks like to us, because we design the mobilization, we design the content, we design the look and feel of how to draw people in based on what they look like.
Yeah, the audience. that
Exactly,
you're
the
trying to
audience.
reach,
And
yeah.
so I think I'm seeing it more and more, and I'm happy, and I think we can continue to just really broaden our lens of what we think about when we think of labor, and then design the content and the mobilization and the feel and the aesthetic around it based on a broader view than just an 18-year-old white girl.
Okay.
Okay? And we need a lot of 18-year-old white girls.
Yes.
For sure. Like, Susie, you're in. Let's go.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, we also need Black families.
Yes.
And we need Hispanic. We need the global South America to get in this, and they are getting in the game.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to broaden our view of what a labor looks like, and begin to evolve the aesthetic to communicate to and inspire more than just the white space.
It's awesome.
So that's mobilization. Okay, training. Here's my big three in training. I work in threes. You guys might not know this, but if
It's a good number.
I just 1, 2, 3, pop. Okay, training. So Antioch's the blueprint for us.
Yes.
Antioch was a multicultural, multi-ethnic leadership team. It was a multi-ethnic space, learning supernatural love. I don't see how people argue with me about that, but it is. Okay. But here's what we've got to understand, and just embrace the tension of this. Right now, most of the missions training and sending organizations are white-led spaces.
Yes.
That's not bad. It's not good. It just is. It just is. Which means if we're going to mobilize, train, and send a Black missions organization, we're going to have to build into those spaces theological clarity about how the gospel confronts ethnic hostility, division between races and ethnos. The gospel explodes racism. The cross tore down the dividing wall, not only between Jew and Gentile, not only between man and God, but between the division of ethnicity, racism. Jesus is the end of racism, John Paper says. So we've got to have training spaces that have theological clarity on that. Because if you don't have theological clarity on that, you won't be able to create a space where people are empowered to walk that
Yeah.
out. Theological clarity, as my friend Billy Humphrey says, theological clarity gives you apostolic courage. And I think in a lot of our spaces, we don't mine down into the theological clarity about how the gospel confronts racism and ethnocentrism. We're being mobilized into the generation, Matthew 24, that's going to see the greatest expression of ethnos against ethnos,
Yes.
nation against nation, ethnic hostility. And in our missions training spaces, we don't talk anything about it. We talk a lot about contextualization over there.
Yes.
We don't talk a lot about creating spaces where everyone can be empowered here. So we got theological clarity, and then you need cultural sensitivity. And that's just called love. This is all it's called, is love.
Is that loving? Yeah.
In the same way, I don't look at an 18-year-old single person and say, well, I'm going to train you and relate to you exactly like I relate to these 50-year-old
Yeah.
couple. In the same way, we've got to think of training not only just what happens in a classroom, but what's formed in a family. And there's unique needs, there's unique skills, there's unique circumstances that African American and Black missionaries come into the training spaces that they need something sometimes different than what a white girl or a white man or a white family comes in. And you just have to recognize that. And to recognize that's called loving. And we've got to get out of this rapid fire deployment, one size fits all, get them onto the field as fast as you can. I think that idea of training and sending is quickly fading away because it's proven to be ineffective long term. There's a lot of attrition on that. And so in order to form people, you've got to understand where they come from and what they need holistically, spiritually, relationally, physically, financially, emotionally. And to say, well, one size fits all is just, that's ignorant. Yeah. Right? We wouldn't think about that anything else. And yet we try to like avoid this or say somehow this is like woke or something. I'm like, no, this is how do we develop people to run with an assignment? Everybody comes in with different things that they need. Yes. And there are real needs. There's real history. There's real trigger points. There's real generational wounding. Yes. That Black America comes into our trading spaces that we have to recognize and be willing to go on the long formation journey with. Yeah. Right. And so there's got to be some sensitivity here. Sensitive to power dynamics. Yes. That's a real thing. That's a real thing in humanity. Right. If I'm sitting with, if I'm a pastor and I'm sitting with a person in our community, I'm coming in, there's a power dynamic there. I am aware of that power dynamic and I'm using that power dynamic to serve them. Yes. Right? And I'm careful what I say and how I say because my words as someone with power and a pastor and influence is going to come across, it's going to hit different than someone who's just buddy and they're hanging out. And you got to be careful with that. That's a loving thing to do is to understand power dynamics. When minority cultures come into white spaces, there's a power dynamic.
100%.
And it doesn't mean that's wrong. It just means we have to be aware of it so we can lean into supernatural love and go, hey, let's learn each other's languages so we don't unnecessarily wound as we're trying to go through, go on the same journey together.
Yeah, that's so good. I think it's also what I love is that separation, building our own things.
Totally.
Is not necessarily the solution.
I know this is a controversial take. I just don't, I'm going to let you finish, but I'll just say this. I do not believe that mobilizing, training, and sending Black missionaries means we need to all go into our segregated spaces and train. 100%. And somehow we'll just meet on the field on the other side.
100%.
I just don't believe that's the heart of God.
I agree with you. I don't believe that the solution is further segregation. But I think that it's the empowerment of learning how to walk lovingly through the tensions and to actually build
absolutely.
To build Antiochs, and to build a community of people who love one another and love the world so that the world can see the love of Christ through the way that we love one another. We don't get that by living in a homogenous...
That's John 17.
Yes.
That's Acts 13.
Yeah.
That's church.
Yes.
It's ecclesia.
Yeah. So that's good. I think it's important and needs to be said more often.
So that's training. And so we've got to embrace the tension.
Yes.
Like most people don't want to get into this conversation because it's uncomfortable. I've been doing it for 15 years and I still feel uncomfortable when I talk about it in front because I don't know who's on the other side of that camera and the trolls are real. But if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, then you're not willing to love supernaturally.
Yeah, 100%.
And when I look in Antioch, if that's our blueprint, there are so many tensions there. And one of those tensions is people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, socio-political spheres being joined together into a new human society called church and becoming a greenhouse for laborers to be shot out into neighborhoods and nations that don't look like them.
Yes.
Paul, Ephesians 3, I'm in prison on behalf of you Gentiles, laying down his life for people that don't look like him.
Yes.
And so if we can't do that in our own spaces here, we're never going to get to Muslim world
Yes.
and Buddhist world and Hindu world. And so I think God's trying to massage us into, hey, let's actually get into a space where we embrace tension. We don't just try to fix the problem or segregate it out. We actually embrace it. That forces us to embrace supernatural love, which prepares us then to lay down our life
Yes.
for neighborhoods and nations that are hostile to us.
Yeah. Yes. I have nothing to add to that. It's perfectly said. I just, all I want to say is it actually just needs to be said more and more and more and over and over and over and over again to the church as a whole, because I think the human side of us wants to avoid whatever is uncomfortable
For sure.
to our own detriment. And I know that we just don't have the tools always. And I think also sometimes the definition of love is so oversimplified compared to the way that the Bible defines love, that I mean, I don't even know, but it's such a deep thing that we're willing to go overseas and live among people that we don't know and learn their language and really like assimilate with them. And we take so much pride in that, but we're not willing to love our neighbor who literally lives next door to us.
Yeah.
And it's almost a very similar tension.
There's a cognitive dissonance there.
Yeah.
But even in our training spaces, we go, no, we don't want to talk about that.
Yes.
Here's we'll go to the sending part.
Yes.
And we'll end here. Here's the problem with not wanting to talk about race or how the gospel confronts it or prepare people to walk in the racial tensions. There can be, asterisks, stigma around racism in America and the church in America, and that's good. We should stigmatize it. That's not holy or healthy. Beloved, there is very little stigma in the 1040 window on racism.
Zero.
And if zero, and I'm speaking from experience and from our Black missionaries' experience, where it would be, for the most part, it would be an extreme case for you as a Black woman to walk down the street and hear racial slurs shouted at you.
Yes.
That would be weird.
100%.
Okay. That is not weird there.
No.
That is open. That is aggressive. It's not good.
It's to be expected.
Okay. So if we don't talk about and walk through those tensions and prepare laborers on both sides.
Yes.
Now we're talking very binary about white and black right now. But if we don't learn how to get in communities where we can walk through those tensions, if we just start shooting out laborers, say we have a team this is hypothetical. Say we have a team we send out and it's got white missionaries and black missionaries, Hispanic, which is very normal for MAPS. We send them out, and then our black missionaries on the ground get confronted with overt racism, and we haven't walked through it with a family here. It is going to be very challenging for that team to walk through that, for our white missionaries to understand that experience, for our black missionaries to communicate that experience. And so it's like, this is not a political issue. It's an issue about formation and how to be successful for long-term laborers on the field. That's when I talk about theological clarity, I'm not talking about speaking into the politics of it. Someone else can do that. I'm talking about how do we create spaces to form laborers that will make it long-term on the field.
Yes.
And if we don't address racism, they won't be prepared for it.
Yeah.
And you know this because you lived in the Middle East.
Yes.
It's not hidden. You know, I remember when I sent my first black missionaries into Eurasia, and I had to fly over because we weren't prepared for what they experienced. I had to fly over and counsel them through this because they were being called all sorts of things openly on the street.
Yeah.
And so that's where, when I'm saying embracing the tension, it's not just so we can have a cool diversity here at home. I'm talking about the formation of black laborers means they have to be able to come into spaces where we can talk openly about racism because they need to know how to process this. And I'll end with this, and I'll give you the last word since I've talked a lot. You can obviously feel I'm very passionate about this, but our base leader of the Levant is a black single woman. Came out of the inner city of America, came out of the LGBTQ community, and now she's leading a majority white team in the Levant. And we had to go on a journey together because she came into a majority white space to be trained and sent.
Yes.
And we had to go on the journey together and we were on that journey, but she really helped catalyze a journey of going, what is your experience in this space so I can understand as a majority culture how to best serve you?
Yes.
And then 2, we had lots of talks like, when you say this is how I hear it.
Yes.
Oh my God, really? That's not what, really? That's what that phrase means to you? Because that means something totally different where I grew up.
Yes.
Oh, I love you and I'm for your destiny. I can change the way I say that.
Yes.
I'm not, why would I just go, well, I'm going to say it, get over it. That's so stupid. It's unloving. It's selfish. And then she was in our school and training through the riots in Richmond, through the another wave of the conversation of police brutality in Black America and that whole conversation. And she had to walk out. We had to create a space where she could process that with a white leader.
Yeah.
And there was many conversations where we were crying and hugging and I don't know the answer, but I love you. So I'm going on this journey.
Yeah.
Fast forward 5 years, she's leading in the Middle East, in the middle of a war zone and thriving.
And I want to say helping others who have come after her, who are also people of color, Black Americans.
For sure.
Helping them to manage the tensions that they might find themselves in. You know, she was one for a very long time.
Yeah, now
there's
staffing,
and now there's
many.
A fear of
and we need more.
Yes.
And so I would just say to those that are going, okay, like we want to be a part of this, mobilizing, training, sending Black missionaries. Then we can't avoid the race conversation. We have to dive into it with and outdo each other and showing honor through it and mutually submitting to each other in love. I'll give you 20 Bible verses on how we should communicate about this. And by the way, it's the exact opposite of how the loud voices are communicating about it on social media.
Yeah.
It's foolishness what they're talking about. But you've got to be able to get in the conversation and be slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to anger.
Yeah.
That's the only way to get through that conversation. But on the other side, we'll go farther together.
Yes.
And we will fight for others that don't look like us, sound like us, sing like us, eat like us, to be at the table, running with us.
Yes.
Joining hands together, not part A and part B, but one movement together, running for the glory of Jesus and the nations.
The only thing that I'll say is what I have loved since being part of MAPS Global is the intentionality. Like, this is a mandate for us as MAPS Global. That's what Randy said, and for sure it is. We pray for it, and we are stewarding the word of God that he has put as the best way that we can. We are actively mobilizing. We are actively training. We are actively sending and celebrating people of color, Black people that are being called into this assignment of going as missionaries into the nations.
Yes.
And so I love that, but I also want to say that I truly do believe that as the global church, we need to make space for it. You know what I mean? And I think that would just be my invitation is like, I don't know that there is one, but I think if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I want to learn more about this. I want to go and read about the people that we just spoke about. Go and ask the Lord, is there a way in which I should be participating in this? If not,
awesome.
That's chill. If you know what I mean? But I just love that the Lord saw fit for me to be born in the generation that I was born in.
100%.
So that I can actually partake in the Great Commission the way that I can partake in it now. And that is my assignment. But this house is a vessel in which the Lord is using to put me in my assignment. You know what I mean?
It's amazing. Yes.
Because that mantle, you guys have taken up that mantle. So
by the grace of God.
By the grace of God. And we're excited to see more Black missionaries in the 1040 window.
Let's go.
In the name of
Black
Jesus.
arrows. Shoot them out, Lord. Hey, would you say we get to do this?
Yes, I would. We get to do this.
And we must.
And it must be done. Okay. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Catch you next time.
Next time.
Time.
The next podcast is going to be amazing.
As they always are.
We hope you
Cheers.
enjoyed this episode of the MAPS Global Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and check out previous episodes. Have you seen our 50 Hours documentary? Watch it now. don't forget to sign up for our email newsletters.